Hi everybody, and welcome back to Sew Along with Jan and the August Kimberbell Mini Quilt. So we're going to work on this cute little beach style mini quilt. Isn't that cute? I love, so the little bag is actually like a pocket and it has a beach towel in it. And we got the swimsuit and the umbrella down here, and then a flamingo. So I think this will be a real fun one. There's only 4 blocks in this one. Well, there's actually 6, but there's just 2 that are just filler blocks. So we'll quilt those too. So in the first video, I think we're going to do the dip into summer block and the flamingo block, and I might actually quilt these 2 little ones here, or we might do that in the second video. We'll see how long the video goes. So, but first of all, we need to talk a little bit about our fabrics and everything. We've done all of this quite a few times before. This is the 8th one. So we've gotten all of these little mini quilts done. They're so much fun to make. So this one's going to be cute because it's got some glitter vinyl in it and some dimensions. So I'm anxious to try this one. Okay, so let's look at our fabrics here. We'll talk a little bit about the threads. I picked, it went through and I kind of combined these 2 golds. These are done in the beach bag. So I kind of combined these 2 golds together and did kind of an orange color instead. So that I don't have a gold in mind. So we'll see how it goes. I may have to add another color, possibly. White and a yellow. The yellow matches my bathing suit. So it's 206 Harvest Gold and 001 white. I'm using the brother colors. And then I've got 2 pinks. I've got a lighter pink and a darker pink, and they're for the flamingo. So I have medium rose, which is 1004 for the lighter one, and then the darker one is 1350 Pink Magic, because the glitter vinyl is actually pretty dark pink. So I just kind of matched my fabric. So that's how I pick my colors. I kind of pick, I take my fabrics and match them so that they are close to my fabric colors. So they may not match exactly the little squares. And then Glacier Blue I used for the blue, and it's kind of for the water. And mine was a little bit more this periwinkle color. So this is 288 Glacier Blue. So it's a little bit more of a periwinkle color. And then black. And then I needed a couple more colors for my quilting. So I did a light blue because my background fabric is going to be light blue, 10017, and then reddish brown, which is kind of an orangey color for my quilting on one of my blocks, and that's going to be 337. So I just that's how I pick my colors. Don't get kind of take your fabrics and match your colors to it so that you can see where they're going to stitch, and then you can pick the colors that match the best with your fabrics. Okay, so let's turn this over. Now I just picked this out of my stash. So, and I didn't have, I might have bent my needle. I may have to change my needle quick between here. So I went through and I just picked my fabrics out of my stash. And then what I do is I just kind of, pick my fabrics out from my little chart here, and then I just start cutting my pieces. And then I put them in little piles by the block that they go with. So my first block is the dip block. And then I've also got my 2 little pieces here that were the filler blocks. Now I use, with those filler blocks, just so you know, they tell you to cut them 3 by 3. I did cut mine 2.5 by 2.5 because I like that method too with with the quilting, the block by block quilting. So I just cut mine 2.5, and I get along just fine with that. So you can cut them 3 if you want to, but then you got to cut them down. So I did cut mine at 2.5. So that's what those 2 blocks are. And then this is the dip background block, and the rest of it's just stitched on that one. And then the flamingo block, I didn't have a little colorful print, so mine ended up being like blue polka dots. I thought it looked nice. This is my ocean color and part of my flamingo, and the rest of it's in glitter vinyl. So that's for the flamingo block. And see, I just put them together then. I cut them out, and then I just put them together. Here's my umbrella block. So this is the bathing suit. I put lemons on my bathing suit. And then I had pink and blue, or the pink and the yellow for the umbrella, and then this is the background. And then I had This is for the beach bag. So the beach bag's going to be different. We're going to make a pocket using water-soluble stabilizer, and then we're going to put it on. And this is actually going to be the beach towel, this little striped piece, and this is my background. So I just kind of picked out of my stash. And when I do that, you know, I just kind of look at the colors and try to pick out stuff that's similar, and it works really well. And then you'll need your little packet of stuff from your embellishment kit. This has a couple of pieces of vinyl on it for the umbrella, and the glitter vinyl for the Flamingo. Okay, and then I also cut, I don't know if you can see it down here, I also cut my binding out of my, oh, I did have that striped fabric that they use for the binding, so I did have that. And I cut my binding 2 1/4 inches instead of 2 1/2, so it does say 2 1/2. So I have my 3 pieces of binding out of my fat quarter here. And then my backing is going to be that blue and white polka dot. I didn't have enough of the other, this is the one I used for that one block. So I use my blue and white polka dot, and then I do put shape flex on the back of my backing so that it gives it some body when I go to stitch it together. So I've got that ready. I've got my sleeve, and this is something that's not in the instructions. If we're putting our little sleeve on the back. So I've got my 12 by 6 by 12 piece here cut for my sleeve. So that's ready to go as well. Okay, and I did go through and I checked over my, and we'll do this in the when we do the blocks, but I like to also go through and look at the blocks in the instructions here and then see what stabilizers, or if I need to put shape flex on the back of anything. I like to do that in advance. So I just kind of go through each block and then I do the shape flex before I finish my cutting, because then I have it all done. But we'll go through that as we go through each block. So, okay. So I think that kind of goes through the fabrics. You will need some batting. You will need your shape, or I'm sorry, your no-show mesh for the stabilizer for the most of them, and we will need some water-soluble stabilizer because we're going to be using that for the part of the beach bag. So there's a couple different stabilizers for this one. So, all right, and I've got it all cut out. I got my pieces cut out. Let's see here. Fusible back. I'm going to see if there's anything else listed here. I don't think so. I think we're good there. All right. So I think we're just going to get started. Now, and remember, everybody, I'm doing this along with you. I have never done these before, so I find it fun to just do this with you guys. And it's kind of just, I just turn the camera on while I'm sewing them. So they are really fun to do. Okay. Now, the other thing I wanted to tell you is I do not have the quilting designs that they call for in these instructions. I didn't purchase this set, so I'm just using some of the ones I have, and so they're going to look really nice. They're not the same as the ones in the design, so I think mine's going to be a little bit different, but it still looks really cool. So, all right, so we're going to start out, of course, with the first block is dip. Now this one's just sewing, so we're just going to do the quilting together, and then I'll turn off the camera while I stitch out dip into summer. And then we will go on to the Flamingo block. So that one has a little more applique in it. All right, so let me get my kit here for that. Got to get all these things sorted out. So here's our dip block. Now these two little pieces are my blocks that we're going to quilt, and I'm not sure. We'll see if we have time at the end to do these two. So I'll just put these aside. These are the two little filler blocks, but they do need to be quilted before we put them in the quilt, of course. All right, so here's our background piece. It wasn't exactly the same, but it was similar, and it was a similar color. And we need our batting. So I've got my chunk of batting here. It says to put the fusible backing or the shape flex on the back of this, which I already have done. So I've got that ready on my backing here, and it says to use wavy 7, but I don't have that wavy quilting pattern. Let's go over here, and I chose wavy 1 because it was still kind of a gentle wave like this, so I decided to do that. This one, wavy 7, must have been much closer together, And this one's a little further apart, but I thought it would look nice. So let's just try wavy one. All right, so I got to go into my quilting tab here. Got to go all the way down to the W's. I have a lot of quilting designs, so I figured, you know, you don't have to buy them all. I have a lot of them just because I use them a lot. So, but I have so many that there's something that'll work. All right, so here's the wavy. This is just not as close together. And it says we need wavy one, and then it says horizontal design. So the design is going to be in the hoop this way. So I want them to run up and down, actually, I think. So let's see here. We need it to be, it says the size is 4 by 6. So let's get the 4 by 6 ones here. 4 by 4, 4 by 6. So I want it to go this way. I want it to go up and down by the picture here. So I think that looks good. So that's the 4 by 6. So it is going to be in a 4.5 by, it's 4.5 by 6.5, you know, because it adds about a half an inch for the seam allowance. And so it does go fit in a 5 by 7 hoop. So I am using a 5 by 7 hoop. And then it says to align the block embroidery file with the quilting design so that both files are centered. So we're just going to go ahead and hit set here for quilting, and then I'm going to hit add, and then we're going to go back into my USB stick, and I got to go find my mini quilts for, oops, maybe I didn't get into the right one. Just a second. I forget we have both of them on here now. We need mini quilts July. Here it is. We need this one. And I'm going to go into August. Can you believe we're doing August already? This is so cool. So here's dip into summer. And it automatically on the Brother Baby Light machines will come in centered, so everything's already centered for us. We're going to hit set and embroidery. So now we're ready to embroider. So the first steps, of course, will be our quilting designs. All right, so I've got my chunk of batting. You know I don't cut my batting. If you want to cut your batting, those instructions and the sizes are listed in the quilting instructions. So you just have to print out your quilting instructions. I just use a chunk of batting. Okay, so here's my 5 by 7 hoop with my shape, or my no-show mesh. I don't know why I don't call it shape flex today. So my no-show mesh in the hoop, and the first steps are going to be our quilting. So, of course, let's see, I want to quilt this. What color was this? This is that kind of orangey color, right? Yeah. So I'm gonna quilt this in my reddish brown. It's what 337. So that's the color I picked for quilting. So I'm just going to put that one in for all the quilting steps. So let's thread the machine up. Oh, maybe I might need to change my needle. I'm going to turn the camera off for a second and change my needle because I think I needed to anyway. I'll be right back. Okay, so got the machine threaded, got my needle changed. I've been working on one of those Claudia Donnell designs that are like multi-hooped, and there's a lot of stitches. So I think I needed a new needle anyway. I noticed it last night when I was working on it. So, all right, so now we're going to work on our quilting. First step is always the placement line for the batting. So we'll stitch out number 1. I just have regular bobbin thread in the bobbin. I think I have enough. I may have to check before I get too far. The last hooping that I did last night was like, oh my gosh, it was like 50 or 60,000 stitches. So it was a lot of stitches. So I may need a new bobbin too. I have a tendency not to check when I stick the hoop on there. We'll just take a peek here and see how we're doing. Oh, good. I think we'll be fine with this one. Okay. We're good. All right. And I just use pre-wound bobbins. So I have my tight bobbin case in, my blue dot bobbin case. Some of them have a pink dot in them because I don't like to wind bobbins. I'm very lazy. So then we're going to lay our batting down in here. And step number 2 is always going to tack our batting down. So I'm just going to lay that little chunk in here. I found that the first ones that I did, I did the trimming of, I cut my batting, and you still have to trim it anyway because they have you cut it like an inch too big or something. So I figured, well, why spend all that time cutting batting when I can just trim it off? So I just have these chunks. I always keep, pieces from long arming, and that's what I use for batting. This is Hobbs 8020. I actually really like this for these because it's not stiff, it's very soft, but it has more loft than the project battings do. Like a lot of those project battings are so low loft that you can't really see the quilting. I really like that I can see the quilting better because it's a little bit more poofy. So this has been good batting. It works well on the long arm, and it works well for this as well. You just don't want to, the warm and natural batting, like warm and natural, that's one that's pretty easily found. That one's kind of stiff for this because it makes everything very hard. It's kind of a hard batting. But this is soft because it's got that little bit of polyester in it. It makes it lofty. So we're going to trim this around close to the stitches. Okay, and then our third step is always the placement line then for the fabric. And I like to always stitch this out because if I don't, there's times when we need it. Like when we go to do our two little filler blocks, we need that stitch out to help us get the fabrics lined up correctly. So I always stitch it out even though I don't really need it in this case, but I just stitch it out because it helps me. Okay. Then we're going to lay our fabric down in the hoop here. I haven't looked at the next one to see what size hoop we need. We might need a bigger one. This one's going to need, yeah, that one, the next one's going to need a bigger hoop. So, all right, so we're going to lay this in here. And then the fourth step is always going to be the tack down line for the fabric. Tack that down. And then, of course, the fifth step is going to be the quilting. All right. So then step number 5 will be the quilting, and then we'll move on to the actual block. So let's get this started, and I'll turn the camera off just a moment while this stitches a little bit, and then we'll come back and start our block. And this one's just going to be lettering there's no applique on this one. So then we'll move on to the Flamingo block that has some applique. Okay, so it's all quilted, and you can really see the little waves in there. I think it looks really great. So now the next step is just going to be the lettering. Now, I noticed that the first color is supposed to be summer, and it's supposed to be the darker pink, but my pink is pretty dark to match my glitter vinyl, so I think I'm going to do mine in the lighter pink. So don't be afraid to change your mind on the colors. You know, if you see something that you don't like, just do it the way you want to do it. So I think I'm going to do the lighter pink because that's more the color it looks here, but I was just matching my fabrics. I don't always I look at the chips, but I just match my fabrics and what works well with the fabric I'm using. So we're going to use this lighter pink. It's kind of a medium pink anyway. So this is going to be the word summer, and then it'll do the dip into in white. And I've just got my white thread here, so I do like the white on here. So I'll be back. I'm just going to let this stitch out, and I'll be back when this is all stitched out because it's just going to take a little while. It's 2 color changes and about 11,000 stitches though. Okay, so I stopped already, and I wanted to show you that I could not see my lettering very well because, my fabric's kind of this orange color, and I should have used the darker pink. So this is how I fixed that, so I don't have to start over again. So my friend Lynn showed me how to do this. And you take your water-soluble stabilizer. This works really well. If you make a boo-boo, you can cover it up. So I'm just going to put this water-soluble stabilizer over the letter that I stitched out because I just don't care for it. It's not going to show up enough. We need to use that darker color. So I'm going to go ahead and tape this down over the top of that letter. See, this is why I like doing these videos, because then I can show you my boo-boos too. So this is a good way to fix this. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and change my color. I'm going to put a little tape on the bottom too. When I use this water soluble, I have a tendency to tape it down pretty good because it does like to scooch. And we're going to take it off after we get this first letter done anyway, just to get it out of the way. So I'm just going to go ahead, and it's just my standard water soluble topping that I use for, anything with a pile on it. and it's clear. All right, so I'm going to go ahead and put that darker pink in there because I think it does need to be the darker pink because I don't think you're going to see it. All right, I'm going to back up. Also, I'm going to hit the negative positive needle on my machine, and I'm going to back up to the beginning of the color. So it's going to go and sew over the same thing that it already did. But with that water-soluble stabilizer over there, it's going to hold the stitches up above the lighter pink. And most of the time, you don't even see that there's another color underneath. It may show just a teeny little bit with this because it is kind of a decorative stitch. But if it does, I didn't have to do the whole block over again because I didn't want to have to. But now you can see it way better. I think you can see it on the screen that it's way better. So then it's going to do like a little satin stitch, I think, around it too. And I think it's going to be absolutely fine. All right, so I'm going to let this stitch. After we get the first letter done, I am going to pull this water soluble off of here. But that's a way you can fix something. If you do the wrong color, or if you just put that water soluble over the top, it really helps. And you can cover up your boo-boo, and then you can move on and do the rest of it. So I think this will be fine. So it's going to do that satin stitch. So after it gets done with that, I think I will pull this up and just get it out of my way now. So we'll just let the machine stop. Okay. All right, so we're going to let the machine stop here. I'm going to pull this off now since I've got the boo-boo covered up. And then I'm going to continue on with my block. See, now you can see it. So I should have chosen the darker color. But that was a way to fix it. So I'm going to go ahead and let this stitch out, and I'll stitch out the white then for the other letters. And then we will move on to the next letter, to the next block actually, because then we're going to do the flamingo. Okay, so I got my little summer done. Dip into summer, and you can just barely see that there's just a very slight difference in the color here, but I think it looks fine, and most people are never going to notice that. I just know, but that's a good way to fix. Like, I've got a little teeny bit of that water soluble in here. There we go. But that's a really good way to fix a boo-boo, so you don't have to do the whole block over again. And how many people are going to see that there's a very slight difference in the colors? So anyway, that's just a good way to fix it if you have a problem like I did. So okay, so now there's our first block. I'm going to take that out of the hoop. And we'll do all the trimming at the end. So this one's going to be trimmed, of course. So I'll put it up here. And we're going to move on to the flamingo. Now, I think the flamingo, let me get my pack here. So we need our pink glitter vinyl. And second, Gigi, you're going to need to give me my book. Thank you. My poor kitty doesn't feel very good, so she's been out here helping me today. She's very clingy right now. She's not feeling very well. Okay, so this one needs to be in I think it's going to have to be in an 8x12 because we're using a 6x8 quilting design, so it's 6.5 by 8.5. So we're going to grab my 8x12 hoop to do this one in, and we're going to start out with a different quilting design, and then we're going to do a little applique and do some glitter vinyl too. So give me a moment. I'm going to turn the camera off for a second. I have to go find my 8x12 hoop. I think it's behind me somewhere. And then I also need an iron because we're going to press down our flamingo glitter vinyl. Okay, so I've got all my 8x12 hoop, and I put my no-show mesh in that. And this one says to put the fusible backing or the shape flex on the back of all the fabrics. So I have it on the back of, here's my pink for the bottom part of my flamingo, my water, and the background fabric. So I have shape flex on the back of all three of these fabrics. And then we also need that piece of pink glitter vinyl. So I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to pull that carrier sheet off of there. Oops. Like that. So we got that ready. And let's see. Okay, so this is one of those ones. And I will link this in the video below. If you have a little bit of software, you can easily make this design fit. Since the quilting is it says 6 by 8, it's actually going to be 6.5 by 8.5. So it won't quite fit in the 6 by 10 hoop. So if you have a little software, you can remove the last 2 steps of the design, 4 and 5, because those are the ones that make the design too large. So if you have a little bit of software, you can actually adjust it so that you can use it in a 6 by 10 hoop if that's what you have. So I have a video about how I did that, and the software that I would recommend, they have a new software Dime does called, if you don't have any software, if you don't want to spend a ton of money, it's called Embroidery Toolshed Plus, and it's like $129, and it's very nice editing software. It has some lettering in it, some monogramming, just some good basic software if you just want to have something that you can do this kind of stuff with and do a little editing and maybe change colors and change sizes and that type of thing. So excellent software to consider, and I'll link all of that in the video below as well. Okay. Can you get up here? Just a second, my little helper's back. I'm trying to get her to get off the sewing machine so I won't wonk her with the hoop here. She's been pretty clingy. She's just not feeling well. So, okay. So we're going to start with a 6 by 8 quilting design. I'm going to go get that first. Now, I didn't have the one called Summer 1. So I looked at it a little bit in the picture, and it looks like it has maybe beach towels and a bathing suit and maybe a beach umbrella. But I did have one that had umbrellas on it, so I thought, well, let's just use that one instead. So, because the umbrellas look like, like a beach umbrella. These umbrellas look basically like the same umbrella that was in the other one I had. So we're just going to use that one instead, and that's Spring 1. So I'm going to go in, and we're going to get our quilting design first. Let's see. Whoops, it's in this one. And it was Spring 1 is what I found that had the umbrellas on it. I thought, well, that'll be close enough. I mean, who's going to know if it's a beach umbrella or a regular umbrella, right? So let's see here. Sorry, I have a lot of designs, and they're all in alphabetical order. And if I get too fast, they slide right on past. So I have to find Spring. Here we go. Spring 1. Here we go. And it's 6 by 8. So let's go into the embroidery files. Block by block is what we're doing. And then we're doing, what did I say, 6 by 8, right? 6 by 8. So remember, it's going to be 6.5 by 8.5. 6 by 8. Here it is right here. So it's just got umbrellas on it. I thought, well, you know what? That's good enough. I mean, it looks like an umbrella, right? So we're going to do that, and then, but see, it's 6.5 by 8.5. So that's why if you have that software, you can remove the steps 4 or 3 and 4. Not the last 2 steps. It's steps 3 and 4, which are the ones that are the wider ones. And that's the ones you need to remove to make it work, because then you could just tape your fabric around the outside edge and it will still work just fine. Okay, so we're going to set that one, but I have an 8 by 12 hoop in. So if you have a bigger hoop, you can just use the bigger hoop instead. Then we're going to add, and then now we're going to go get the Flamingo block. I noticed there's also there's some instructions available if you don't have the bigger hoop for this block as well, like a split instruction. Okay, and then we're going to go get the Flamingo. Let's see here. Get in the right folder this time. August. And then here's our Flamingo. And the 8 by 12 hoop, that's the one it goes. And then this one says, align the block embroidery file with the quilting design file so that both files are centered. So it is going to be just as it comes in, which is good. And this one says, pay close attention to instructions marked with the attention. So there's something going on in the one of the first instructions here, so we'll have to watch closely when we get in here. I saw a little caution thing, so I think this is right though, so we're good there. And there's our little Flamingo. Okay, so let's hit embroidery, and then of course we're going to start out with the quilting as usual. So I'm going to get my get my hoop ready, and I am going to be quilting this one with white. So I put white thread in my needle. Better check my bobbin though, hadn't I? See if I've got enough to get through. Oh, at least through this part. I'm getting a little low. I've got another partial one up here I could use too. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and do the first step, which is always going to be that quilting line again. Put my fabrics out of the way. My little helper is back again. Aren't you? She doesn't like the embroidery arm's going to hit her though, and she's going to have to move. She doesn't like the bigger hoops because then they hit her. She sits on the end of the embroidery arm, but the smaller hoops won't hit her, but this one's going to. All right. Got all my pieces here. Can you go sit up here? She doesn't like my cutting mat because it turns. So she's mad at me. I have her mat covered up. Okay, so now we got our placement line for our batting. So we're starting with the batting, of course. Get my chunk of batting here. I think I've got a piece over here. Whoops. Sorry, I didn't hit the camera. Get this in here. I'm just gonna, got some cat hair, of course, too. There we go. So now we're gonna, step number 2 is to tack this down. But yeah, the software option for these, if you have a machine that's 6x10, almost all of these can be done in a 6x10, and like this one is really close, and it's because of the quilting, because of the way they do the quilting design. So if you have some software, it really will take care of that, and you can get stuff into a smaller hoop. And that's the way I got around having a smaller machine for many years, because I could do some stuff in my software then to make it work. And so if you don't have any, that Embroidery Tool Shed Plus is new. It just came out, it hasn't been very long ago, maybe a month or 2 ago, and it's very reasonable for good editing software. So I'd highly recommend it to you. It's very simple to use. All right, so then we're going to trim this. All right, oops, trim close to the stitches. Sometimes I get a little carried away. I like to try to trim in the hoop, but it's hard with these big ones. Just got that no-show mesh in the hoop is all. The machine stopped moving, so now she thinks she could come back, so she's going to get hit by the hoop again. She's very persistent. This cat's always been like that. Okay, so then the next step is going to be the placement line for the fabric. So that's step number 3. If I move this, will you move over there? How about that? Can you move over here? There we go. She just wanted me to move that cutting mat. She doesn't like that thing. It swivels. It's that Martelli mat, and it swivels, and when she walks on it, it turns, and she doesn't like it. Can you lay down now? There you go. Now she's got her wool mat. She's happier now. Okay. So we got that on here. Now we're going to put our background on. Lay this over. I got the shape flex on the back of this. Like that, get it as centered as possible. And then, of course, step number 4 will tack it down for us. Now the last step and this step would be the ones you'd remove if you had some software, because this is the ones that make it 8.5 by 6.5. So if you take these off, you can just lay your fabric over the batting and just like tape it on the edges, and then just do the quilting. And that line's not there to cut with, but you can get it in a smaller hoop. So that's what I do. And I'll link that video for you. All right. So now we're going to do the quilting. All of our little beach umbrellas. All right. So our spring umbrellas became beach umbrellas. So we're going to do those in the white. And then I will be back in a minute to start. Oh, I think we start with just going to look and see. Oh, we're going to start with the water at the bottom. So, all right, well, I'll be right back. Okay, so we've got our quilting on here, and you can just see the little umbrellas and stuff. I think it looks really nice. So that's my quilting. And then the first step of the actual design is going to be the water placement line. So I put my blue in that matches my fabric for my water. Here's my water. And this is where the special instructions were. So we'll do this. And I think what it's going to do is I see what the special instructions are. They actually want you to put a different color in, but I think I can still see it. I think it's going to be dark enough I can see it. It tells you in step 2, use a visible thread color, stitch the trimming guides, water tack down lines. So I think what they're telling you is that since this is going to be like trimmed, we're not going to trim the fabric down here, we're just going to trim it across here. But I'm just going to leave the same color and I think it'll be fine, because it's going to be enough darker that I should be able to see it fine. I like to keep my threads matching because sometimes things show through and then I have trouble. So we're going to do that. Then we're going to trim only the top edge of the fabric close to the stitch line. Do not trim any other edges at this time. So we're not going to trim the other edges. So we're going to do that. And then we're going to move on up to the flamingo. And it's just going to kind of baste around the outside edges. Okay, I can still easily see that. So we're just going to trim across the top then. And it does tell you to tape, and you know me, I don't tape much when it comes to fabric. I do tape some things just because it slides. So we're going to be doing like a beach umbrella, and it's got some vinyl, and we're definitely going to be taping that down. Okay, so we're going to trim that across the top. Okay, so there's our water. And then we're going to stitch the chest placement line. Oh, for the flamingo. So the flamingo chest is that lighter pink. So I'm going to use my lighter pink that I tried to use on my summer, but it didn't work out very well. So we're going to use that for that. And that is medium rose. I can't remember the number on it. 1004. It's a nice pink. Okay, so we're going to use that for the chest of our flamingo. So that'll be the placement line. And then we're going to place our fabric right side up, and we're going to stitch the tack down line. And then we're going to trim the fabric close. I love flamingos. I remember when I was a little girl, I think the reason I like flamingos is when I was a little girl, some of my mother's family lived in Florida, so I remember going to Florida several times as a quite young child and to visit her cousins. And so I got to see real flamingos. I just thought that was so cool. And my mother's aunt and uncle lived there too. All right, so then we're going to trim this. And this is on the bottom of page 7, by the way, of the instructions. So we're going to trim this close to the stitches. There's our body for our flamingo then. Now let me turn the page. We're on page 8 then. And this one says to stitch the sand fill. And that's supposed to be one of the golds. And I didn't think it looked like it was going to be sand. So maybe I'll go grab a gold real quick, a little bit of a gold, because maybe I do want my sand to look a little bit more like sand. I thought it was supposed to be like the horizon, like the sunset or something, but they call it sand. So I think I will go grab kind of a gold, kind of a tannish sand color. So give me a second and I'm going to go do that. Okay, so I grabbed my 328 brass, and it was supposed to be in the dark gold, so they must have kind of made it a gold color. for the sand or like the ground up here. So that's what it was supposed to be. I couldn't tell in the picture, so when I was picking my colors, I didn't know. And now we're going to do that's going to be this strip here. And then we'll move on to the legs. So give me a moment and I'll come back and we'll put the little flamingo's legs on too. Okay, so now the next step, and this is step number 6 on the top of page 8 of the instructions. This is the legs. So I put the darker pink in, and we're going to stitch the legs. And then I'm going to stitch the chest, the little chest up here. That's in the lighter pink. I'm going to do that satin stitch before I come back again. And then we'll do the glitter vinyl applique together. So I'm going to do the dark legs, the dark pink legs, and the lighter pink for the little chest. And then I'll come back and we'll do the glitter vinyl applique. Okay, so I did step 6 and 7 on the top of page 8 of the instructions. And now we're going to do step number 8. And that is going to be with the darker thread. And this is the placement line for the glitter vinyl for the flamingo. So we're going to do that, and then we're going to put this is going to be our glitter vinyl. You need a pretty good sized piece. And I've got the little plastic coating taken off. All right, and then we're going to lay, now this is going to be raw edge applique, so we're going to lay this down. I'm going to lay this down on here. Make sure everything's covered. And I'm just going to hold it, but you can tape it if you want. And then this is step number 9 is going to be the tack down. Then we're going to trim it. So this is going to be raw edge, so we want to be a little careful when we're trimming. Now, I grabbed my glasses for this because my thread really matches this really well. So we'll trim this. And then we're going to press it down with a pressing cloth. Make sure it doesn't scooch on me here. Not too much of it is in the glitter, so. And then we're going to move on and do the beak and his eye. And it looks like maybe the little waves down here in the water. All right, so now I'm going to trim this close to the stitches. Now again, this is raw edge, so you want to kind of take your time with the trimming so you get a nice even edge. And I'm going to put my glasses on because wow, is it matchy. I have trouble with matchy stuff. So we're going to trim this, and it was kind of done in a little triple stitch. So try to keep, carefully trim so it's nice and smooth. And then we're going to go ahead and press this down to the fabric. This is a little bit tricky. I may have to turn the camera off for a minute because I'm going to have to flip this hoop around. But I'm just going around. I'm leaving about 1/8 of an inch roughly around the stitching, and then I'm going to go all the way around, and then I'll be back and we'll do the pressing. Okay, so I'm ready to do the pressing. My helper is assisting me over here, so I'm going to go ahead, and I've got my hoop over here on my ironing mat. I'm going to cover it up with a pressing cloth. This is just an old tea towel that I use. And I'm just going to press down for about 15 to 20 seconds on that. It's a little bit bigger, so I have to move this little iron. I like this little iron when I'm doing this, but this one could have used a little bit larger one. It's bigger hoop too. All right. There we go. So we're just going to press that on. Let it cool for a little bit before we move on to the next step. All right. Now again, that was raw edge, so we're not going to go ahead and do any more stitching on that because I think the next step, get me my book here, I think the next step is going to be with the darker pink, and it's the beak. So I've got my darker pink in already. And then we're going to do, this is step number 10. So we did 9 and did the pressing. I want this to cool off just a little bit before I stitched on it. Okay, that looks good. And then I'm going to do steps 10, 11, 12, and 13 before I come back. And what those are is the beak in the darker pink, the rest of the beak in the lighter pink, the eye in the black, and then the ripples of the water down here in white. So I'm just going to do all of those before I come back. Those just simple stitching parts, steps. So, okay, so I got my dark pink in here, and I'm going to start my beak. And then it's going to move on to the lighter colored pink, black, and white. Okay, so there's our design. The last step, number 14 on page 8, says do not stitch that step because it was like a placement line to hold the pattern in the correct position. So our flamingo is done. So there's my flamingo with the little water down here and everything. And I'm going to take this out of the hoop, and then I'm going to set up, and we are going to go ahead and quilt in this video those two little filler blocks. So I have to just go grab my hoop and stuff for that. But we're going to quilt these real quick in this video, and then we'll move on to the umbrella with the bathing suit block in the second video, and for the little beach bag. So that will be in the second video. So give me a moment, and I'm going to get set up to do the two little blocks, and then we'll trim these at the end. Okay, so we're going to quilt these two little blocks here, these little 2.5 inch blocks that I cut out. And I'm going to quilt them, and the instructions for the quilting is on page 13 of the instructions. So then we're going to back up and do the other two blocks. But I'm going to go ahead and bring in, I chose Spring 1 for my yellow block and Wave 1. So I just did one of each one that I've been using for the other blocks. So I'm going to do Spring 1 for the, let me get my, whoops, I got to get the quilting. We're going to bring in Spring 1. And then I'm going to bring in the Wave 1, and we'll do both of these in the same hoop because they're very small, so I stuck them in a 5x7 hoop with my, sorry, I have a hard time getting, here we go, Spring 1, that's the one that has the little umbrella. And these are 2x2 then. These are very small, so block by block. Make sure you're choosing block by block, and this is the 2x2, so it's just going to have one umbrella on it. I'm going to choose that. And then I'm going to hit add, and I'm going to bring in the wavy 1. So that's the other one I've been using. So we're going to use one of each. So sometimes when I do this, then when I combine things, I actually also do the color sequence, color sort them. But in this case, I want to quilt these in 2 separate colors. So I'm going to do these separate on this one, because I want to do these in separate colors, so I don't want to get the colors mixed up. So we're going to do one at a time, but I'm just going to put them in the same hoop. So wavy 1, and it's 2x2. So here's 2x2, and I think I'm going to do it this way, the horizontal way. Whoops. And then we're going to hit set, and then I'm going to bring that down so that I can get it centered in my hoop. So we're going to just leave a little space in between like that. And then I'm going to go to, I'm going to select these, and I'm going to center them so that I just select it all and hit the center button down here so that they're in my hoop. They should fit in the 5x7 with no problem. Yep. Okay, so we are going to do these separately just because I want them in 2 different colors. So I've got my yellow here. I'm going to start with the yellow one. I got the yellow in the hoop, and I'm just going to grab my piece of batting here. And the first step, all we need is, we're just going to do the quilting. So we're just going to do the first step, which is the placement line for the batting, of course. And this is going to be with Spring 1, because remember we brought Spring in first. And that's going to be the yellow. And we need to put our batting on. In a second here, I got to find a little, maybe this little spot will fit. Let's see if I've got a little tail hanging out here, so maybe that'll work. There we go. Then we're going to put our batting down and do the tack down. And sometimes when I combine things, if it's the same design, I just do the color sort so everything sews together, but I wanted these in separate colors. So we'll just do them in the same hoop though. All right, and then we're going to trim our batting. And this is going to be technique 2 because I cut my fabric at the size it's supposed to be, the 2.5 inches for the little squares. And I've never had any trouble doing this, especially with smaller stuff. So I like this. They've started having you cut your fabric bigger and then trimming it down, but I've never had any trouble doing it this way. So I actually like it this way. And the next step then, that's step number 3 with technique 2 in the instructions for the quilting. This is why we need to have this particular outline, because this is the placement line for the fabric. And what we're going to do is we're going to take our piece of fabric, and there is no shape flex on the back of this, by the way. I don't usually put shape flex on my little filler blocks. You could if you wanted to. I don't know if it says that in the instructions. Let me look. They use technique 1 because they make the fabric bigger. I'm using technique 2. I normally do not put shape flex on. All right, so what I'm going to do then is I'm going to take, this is how it worked well for me. I'm going to take my little sew line glue stick, and I'm going to go in between the batting and that placement line all the way around, and this firmly holds your fabric in place then. And I'm going to take that little 2.5 inch block, and I'm going to put it, I think with the little, I think I'll just put the little lines going horizontally. Okay, and I'm going to stick that down into that line. That's my 2.5 inch line. So the fabric is exactly the right size. And I'm just going to stick it down all the way around, and it's snugly held there. And now, step number 4, oops, I'm sorry, step number 4 we can actually skip. I always forget, but after we stick it down with the placement line, we don't need to tack it down because it's already stuck down with the glue. So I'm going to actually go to my negative positive needle, and we're going to skip through step number 4 with technique 2. And now we're just going to do the quilting. So step number 5 is going to be the quilting. We'll do the quilting. I got a little line of thread there. Just going to get that out of there just a second so it won't get sewn into something. And then this is going to do our little quilting on that little tiny block, and then we'll move on to the second one, and we'll do the wave one for that. So whatever, whatever way, whichever one you brought in first, that's the one you'll do for the quilting. I think that looks cute. Just going to do one little umbrella and then one little swirl there. Isn't that cute? Got a little tail up here in the middle. There we go. Okay, so that one's all done. So now I'm going to switch over to my pink. I'm going to use the light pink for this. This is the block I'm going to put in for the filler block. So I'm going to use my lighter pink, I think. And this one's going to have that little wave pattern on it. The dark pink's a little too dark for this fabric, so I'm just going to use the light pink. Thread that, and then we're going to start again with our placement line for the batting. So I got to get my chunk of batting ready here again. Stitch that out. Then we're going to lay our batting down and trim it. Doesn't take long to do these, and I actually like this technique because I've never really had any problems, because I discovered the glue stick method, and that really worked really well, and it holds the fabric snugly so that it doesn't pull in or anything, and so I've never had any trouble with anything being the right size this way. So anytime you have like piece blocks in your pillows or your quilts, or if you just have filler blocks like this, this is how you would quilt them. And I'm going to trim my batting. Okay. Trim that close to the stitches. That was a way I could use up that little that little finger of batting that was sticking up. So these little blocks. All right, do that. And then we're going to do step number 3 and do our placement line for our little block here. And then I will get my glue stick ready. So there was really only 4 blocks in this little mini quilt, but then they had these 2 little filler blocks on the sides. So, all right. Then I'm going to take my glue stick and go, I like that little sew line one because it's narrow, and I can go right between the batting and the line, the placement line. And then I'm going to stick my little block right in here. Get it right on the line, stick it down all the way around, and it stays nice and firm there. And we're going to go back over here to the negative positive needle, and we're going to skip down to the last step, which is be step number 5. And then we're going to do our little wave stitch on here. Okay, get that ready. And then it's going to do step number 5 and do the little wave. And then we're all quilted. That's all there is to that. It's very simple. I really like that method. Works really well. And then we'll just trim out around the batting, or sorry, the stabilizer. We'll just trim right on the edge of the block because it's already the right size. All right, so there is our 2 little quilted blocks for the fillers. So one's got the little umbrella and one's got the waves. So there's our little filler blocks, and then I'll just trim this out right along the batting. So we're going to do the trimming next. So we'll do that. And if you give me a minute, I'm going to switch over so that I can show you the trimming on the other blocks too. Okay, so we're going to go ahead and trim our blocks. I've got my Martelli roundabout, and I'm so excited I got my new mat. It was on back order, and I finally got my new mat. So everything's going to cut better. And I also got a new rotary cutter. So my rotary cutter was getting, there's like a little plastic piece in here, and sometimes they break, like the little tines break off, and then it starts waving when you try to cut. So I got a new rotary cutter too. All right, so I got my orange pop ruler here. This one is the Dip into Summer, so this one is supposed to be cut 4.5 by 6.5. So here's my 4.5 by 6.5. Now I did make some marks on this one where the edges were because the thread was very matchy. So I needed to be able, I couldn't see it very well. All right, so I'm just going to line those up with the edges of the placement lines, like the tack down lines, because that helps me know that it's approximately 4.5 by 6.5. I'm going to take my rotary cutter, I'm going to turn this towards me, and I'm going to start in the block just a little ways. I don't think I got this quite open. There we go. I'm going to start in just a little bit. I'm going to pull back into the corner and go forward, and just do this deliberately. I still have to do the trimming with these orange pop rulers a little deliberately because it's very strange to be cutting on the inside of the ruler. So just take your time, turn it towards you, and all the way around. So we're just going to trim this. There we go. So now it's 4.5 by 6.5. I think I missed a little spot over here. Oh my goodness. A whole bunch of a spot. I'll have to see if I can get this trimmed out here. Sorry about that. Sometimes that just happens. Must not have pressed down hard enough. There we go. Just a little spot right there. Didn't do very well this, and I even have a new rotary cutter and a new blade. Even then. There we go. Okay, we got it. So there's the first block, 4.5 by 6.5. So that's the summer one. That looks really nice. I just marked this with like the heat away pens. That works really well. If you can't quite see your stitching, because I couldn't. Let's trim these little blocks out. Now what I do with these, you can use a rotary cutter if you want to, but what I usually do with these, what did I lay on her there? I actually just take my scissors and just trim right up to the edge of the block and trim the stabilizer out. This works for me easier because I know my blocks are 2.5 by 2.5, so I'm just going to trim the stabilizer out, and we know we got the right size here. So we'll just trim it out. You can use your rotary cutter if you want to. Just trim these both out. And we're ready. Those are all ready to be put into the little quilt. I moved Gigi out of the way on her mat, but of course then she has to come up and sit next to me while I'm doing this. But okay, so there's our little blocks. So I just trimmed those out. There's our 2 little blocks. We got those done. And then the last block, I believe, is, let me get the right page here. This one, I got to turn one more page, I think. This one is 6.5 by 8.5. So I've got my 6.5 by 8.5 orange pop ruler here. Put this up here on the mat. See if I do better with getting through all the layers this time. So here's my, make sure I got my 6.5 by 8.5, yep. And then this one, we're going to do the same thing. I like to use that line around the outside edge. That helps us kind of get it centered in the ruler there. And then I'm just going to trim this one out. All right, I'm going to start in a little bit, pull back to the corner, spin it around, and it really helps if you have one of these mats. If you don't have one of these rotating mats, I've tried a lot of rotating mats. And this one, oh my gosh, this one has our Lazy Susan on the bottom, and it actually rotates, so it's great. And then there's that one. See how we did, if I did better with the cutting on this one. Oh, much better. There we go. All right, we got it. So there's this one, and this one's 6.5 by 8.5. Isn't that pretty? I love the flamingo. And then our first block, and our 2 little filler blocks. So those are the first blocks of the quilt. The next video will be the next 2, which will be the umbrella, and it has a swimsuit on it, and then the other one is the little beach bag. So we'll do those 2 in the next video. So thank you so much for joining me, and if you enjoyed the video, please give me a thumbs up on YouTube, and if you haven't already subscribed to my YouTube channel, Sew Along with Jan, I'd really appreciate it. So I'll see you in video 2 for the August Kimberbell Mini Quilt, and we will do a couple more blocks. See you soon. Thank you.